Yemen. For the ancient Romans, it was known as Fortunate Arabia, a place of almost mythical wealth. But today, of course, it's home to one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises. So today we're going to explore how a nation once defined by riches became so defined by ruin.
And really, this contrast right here says it all. On one side, you have Arabia Felix, literally Fortunate Arabia, an absolute powerhouse of trade in the ancient world. And on the other, you have today, a nation shattered by conflict. So the question is, how on earth did the story of Yemen go so incredibly wrong?
To really understand the Yemen of today, we have to do something a little counterintuitive. We need to forget the headlines for a minute and journey way, way back in time. We're heading to an era when Yemen wasn't a crisis zone, but a global center of power and immense fortune.
So what was the secret to ancient Yemen's success? Well, it really boiled down to two things: location and luxury. You had these incredibly powerful kingdoms, like the Sabaeans. You might know them as the biblical land of Sheba. They controlled the entire global supply of frankincense and myrrh. And you have to understand, these resins were as valuable as gold back then, making Yemen the essential trade hub, linking Africa, India, and the entire Mediterranean world.
And listen, it wasn't just about trade. Their genius went way beyond that. Take a look at this, the Great Dam of Marib. This was an absolute marvel of ancient engineering. I mean, it literally turned the desert green. For over 1,000 years, this single structure supported a massive, thriving civilization. It's proof that their power wasn't just built on what they sold, but on what they could build.
So the big question is, what happened? How did that amazing golden age come to an end? Well, the truth is, it wasn't one single event. It was more like a long, slow process of cracking apart, a series of fractures that eventually created the divided nation we see today.
This timeline really lays it all out. You can see these cracks forming over centuries. It kind of begins symbolically with the collapse of that Great Dam, which basically closed the book on the ancient era. Fast forward, and you have the colonial period, with the British carving up the country, creating a north-south split. And even when they unified in 1990, those deep-seated divisions, they never really went away. They just simmered under the surface until, boom, they exploded into the full-blown civil war in 2014. And get this, right after they unified, the brand new country was hit with an absolute economic catastrophe. See, Yemen sided with Iraq in the first Gulf War, and in retaliation, Saudi Arabia expelled nearly 1 million Yemeni workers. Just like that, the flow of money they sent home, the absolute lifeblood of Yemen's economy, was cut off. It was a devastating blow, one the country never really recovered from. Okay, so let's shift gears from the past to the present day, because this is the crucial part. Yemen's internal struggles have massive, explosive consequences for the rest of the world. What happens in Yemen definitely does not stay in Yemen. It all comes down to geography, really. Yemen sits at one of the most critical choke points on the entire planet. We're talking about the al-Mandab Strait. It's this super narrow waterway, and a massive chunk of global trade, oil, electronics, you name it, has to pass through it. So if you control that strait, you have some serious leverage over the global economy. And because it's so strategically important, this war was never going to be just a local affair. It's basically a stage for bigger regional and global rivalries. You've got Saudi Arabia and the UAE stepping in to push back against what they see as Iran's growing influence, since Iran supports the Houthi movement. At the same time, the US and other Western countries are involved, partly for counterterrorism reasons, but also more and more to protect that absolutely vital shipping lane. And this is how Yemen's conflict suddenly jumped to the front page of every newspaper in the world. The Houthi movement began launching attacks on commercial shipping, framing them as acts of solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. The impact was immediate. Global supply chains were thrown into chaos, shipping costs went through the roof, and an international naval coalition had to be scrambled to deal with it. But let's step away from the geopolitics for a moment. Because the cost of this war, the human cost, the cultural cost, it's absolutely staggering. This is where the story becomes a true tragedy on an unbelievable scale. I want you to just try to wrap your head around this number for a second. 19.5 million people. That's more than half the entire population of Yemen. We're talking about millions of people who depend on humanitarian aid for the absolute basics: food, clean water, medicine, just to stay alive. And inside that massive crisis, you have another one. Nearly 5 million people have been driven from their homes, forced to flee with literally nothing. They're refugees in their own country, creating a huge internal displacement crisis that's putting an unbelievable strain on services that were already collapsing.
I mean, this chart just lays out the economic devastation in the starkest terms possible. Before the war, things were already tough. Poverty was around 50%. But the conflict, it pushed that figure up to over 80%. Think about that. The vast majority of the population has been plunged into destitution. There's this famous description for the ancient city of Shabam, the Manhattan of the desert. It's such a powerful reminder of Yemen's unique architectural legacy, a legacy of pure ingenuity that is now, right now, under direct threat from the bombs and bullets of the modern conflict.
So you see, this war is doing more than just destroying lives and people's futures. It's actively erasing the past. These incredible, irreplaceable heritage sites are in grave danger. All 4 of Yemen's UNESCO World Heritage Sites, from the old city of Sana'a to the ancient capital of the Sabaean Kingdom, are now officially at risk of being lost forever.
And all of this leaves us with a really tough, profound question. When a nation's present is being shattered to pieces, how can it possibly find a way to save its past? And, maybe more importantly, what do we all lose when thousands of years of shared human history become just another casualty of war?